Alright, I think about broken stream. Well, guess what? It happened again. We went 2 days without it being broken. And I booted it up this morning, or just right now. Couldn't get it to work. Tried closing it, opening it, turning it off, turning it back on again. Nothing was fixing it. So, fuck it. I mean, the talking part's working. It's just everything else isn't. So, yeah. Here we are, back in the Splatoon. I don't remember. I thought about... Because, so Splatoon 1 server shut down in like a few days on Monday. And I thought about it, and I was like... It might even be on Sunday, because that's Japanese time. And I was like, fuck, do we do a game in Spla 1 again? I genuinely thought about it. Because I was like, you know what, that makes sense, right? We go in, we boot up Splatoon 1. Because we did that once before. Way back in, I want to say Season 1 of this show. Yeah, that sounds right. Way back in Season 1, we did a game in Splatoon 1 as like a joke. Like, that was the joke of the stream. And I was like, oh, we could do that again. Plus, I kind of want to play Wind Waker again. And while supposedly Wind Waker is getting released later this year, nothing definitive has happened yet. So, like, what are you gonna do? But I was like, yeah, wouldn't that be neat to do, fucking Splatoon 1 again, just for old time's sake. I don't remember which weapon. I'm pretty sure I used the heavy dynamo in the first game, but it's been so long I kind of don't remember. I know I also used the octo brush for a while. Far cry from where I am now, where I would never touch a heavy dynamo again. They overcorrected with that weapon in Splatoon 2, and because it was so good in the first game. So they nerfed it to high hell in the second game, and it's just not good anymore. And it's like, they could fix it. I think the biggest thing they need to do is get rid of the dynamo's vertical slash, and if they got rid of that, that would actually help it a lot. So that way it only can do horizontal. But yeah, there's a few other weapons like that as well that were good in the original game that they nerfed in the second one, and then have just not been good since. So yeah. So plan tonight. It was April Fool's Day on Monday, so a lot of the news stories we have to talk about this week all relate to the April Fools. Just a bunch of random stuff I want to bring up. I don't know, we live in... It's complicated. April Fool's isn't as good as it used to be. I don't know. I know some people really fucking hate April Fool's because it's all just corporate jargon nowadays. And, like, yeah, it is. But there's a College Humor video that I think does a pretty good job defending April Fool's and explains why it's so good. And I agree with that video wholeheartedly. But, yeah, I've got a few things I do want to talk about. Minecraft. As always, we have to talk about Minecraft. So we have that. I have one news story which we'll start off with about PlayStation. Just because I kind of want to bring it up. Just it's kind of like that yearly sort of reminder thing. We got that. And then I've got some Wibby stuff. Specifically Invincible. The Invincible season finale. And Invincible is one of those things that I keep meaning to talk about every week, and then I forget to talk about it. So we're 100% talking about Invincible. And then Fourth Wing. We have to talk about that. We talked a little about it last week, and now we're going to talk more about it this week. Because I did not do anything else, but I binged my way through that book. Oh boy, you better believe I binged through that book. So yeah. Ooh. So our first story is about Jim Ryan over at PlayStation came out and said, "Hey guys, guess what? Everyone's favorite video game console, the best-selling console of all time, PlayStation 2, is still the best-selling console of all time, as it has now sold 160 million units. Sure, was it a console that came out like 23 years ago? Okay, it might have been 22. Has it been on the market for over 20 years? Yes. But somehow, since like 2017, it has sold another 5 million units. Of course, I've seen some people freaking out about this, that like, oh, this is just PlayStation trying to stomp on Nintendo's parade. Because realistically, by this time next year, the Switch will have been the highest selling video game console of all time. Reasonably, I think no matter what, the Switch is going to come down as the best selling video game console of all time. Even if it's not next year, even if the Switch 2 comes out in like March of next year, I don't think that's going to slow the Switch sales numbers down. Specifically because the Switch, they're gonna hopefully start putting the Switch on sale once the Switch 2 comes out, and I guarantee you, and I mean, I know people like Yahtzee Croshaw love to recommend old video game consoles when new video game consoles come out, because then you can play an old console with a completed library. Yeah, no, seriously. When the Switch came out, Yahtzee Croshaw recommended people buy a Wii U. That's not a joke, by the way. That is seriously something he did. He said that if people want to play Breath of the Wild, they should buy a Wii U and play it on that, because at least then you have a console with a completed library. That's a true fact, Wikipedia, that. But yeah, so people are like, oh, this is just this is right, PlayStation trying to hold them off. And yeah, it technically is. I don't know. So the thing about the PS2 that I feel like a lot of people forget about for why it's the best-selling console of all time. It is a good console. Do not get me wrong. The PS2 is a great console with tons of great games. But the part of the reason it became the best-selling console of all time is because it was a DVD player. Before DVD players were everywhere, before everything had gone digital, back in the day, it was actually cheaper to buy a PS2 as a DVD player than some other thing, than like just a standard DVD player. And there were, especially in third world countries, specifically Brazil. Brazil is the one that always comes to mind. Because I remember when the PlayStation broke, I want to say 155, 150. Back in 2017, it was because people were buying PS2s in Brazil as DVD players. And that PlayStation 2s were still being, like, Wii U discontinued production probably right when the Switch released, if not even before the Switch released. PS4, I don't know if they're still making PS4s. I wouldn't be surprised if they still are. But usually there's some sort of limit, right? Usually consoles eventually go out of production when the next console comes around. The PS2 does not work like that. The PS2 did not go out of production until the PS4 was out. Yeah, like 2017. Because people in, again, Brazil, Nigeria, other countries were buying PS2s as cheap and affordable DVD players. That's part of the because, yeah, right, PlayStation, we're not going to make a DVD player. We're just going to sell them a PS2, which is cheaper, and they work just as well. And guess what? That worked. And it worked really well, and it's not the only factor the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time, but it's a very important one, right? The PlayStation 2 being a DVD marketing app, like, how Xbox tries a lot to capture, like, all-in-one home entertainment. Hey, on this one Xbox, you can play your games, you can watch your streaming services, it's got a Blu-ray player, it does everything. Yeah, PlayStation technically actually pioneered that with... technically, I think the original PlayStation played CDs, right? Like music CDs. But it was the PS2 that could play DVDs that was so important for people. I remember using my PlayStation 2 as a... Well, okay, it was technically my father's, but you get the point. I remember using it as a DVD player. Because it worked. Of course, nowadays we don't have DVD players anymore, so what does it matter? But yeah, I still... You know, this is another story. Okay, boom, it's happened. I saw some people making a fuss about this. I don't think this is really a fuss-worthy story. Especially because, oh, what? Now the Switch has to sell an extra 5 million units. Oh, wow, it's not like they're still projected to sell like 25 million units this year. Oh, my glob. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really think this changes that much. If I'm just being honest. Oh, gosh. I got some mucus, and oh my god, it clogged up my nose, and I couldn't breathe out my nose for a second there. Oh my god, I still kind of can't. But yeah, so I don't think this is a story that everyone was talking about on like Monday. I don't think it's that big of a news story. So let's just move on. So April Fool's Day happened. Again, people are kind of sick of corporations making April Fool's Day jokes. And I kind of get it, mainly because since COVID, these companies have just been getting lazier and lazier. That's the other thing, is it's not that they're just making bad jokes. It's that the jokes are just lazier and lazier. Like the Pokemon Company. Their joke this year? Oh, what if we did the Pokemon Sleep World Championships? Okay, I mean, like, it's a fine joke, I guess, but I don't know, I just feel like they could do more. Like, remember that one year they integrated Pokemon into Google Earth? That eventually was a proof of concept for Pokemon Go. That was a cool joke. In recent years, my take in April Fool's Day has been a kind of, if you're gonna make the joke, stand and deliver. Right? You can't just say, oh, hey, isn't this a funny joke? No, if you're gonna make, like, oh, like, wouldn't this be a crazy product to make? No, if you're gonna say you're gonna do something crazy, actually fucking do it. Like McDonald's, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, made a joke about doing, milkshake flavored dipping sauces. Right, so you had, like, a vanilla, a chocolate, a strawberry, and a shamrock shake. Dipping. And it's like, okay, that's a weird idea. But you know what? Fucking stand and deliver. Actually make those. Instead of just saying, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? Like, because back in, like, I remember ThinkGeek used to be famous for their, I think ThinkGeek doesn't exist anymore. But they used to be famous for making these April Fool's Day products. And then guess what? They just actually made them. It wasn't just like, oh, hey, isn't this a crazy joke product? It was, but then they just actually made the product. Right? Like IGN made a joke about a Virtual Boy Pro. Where it's like, hey, it's the Virtual Boy Pro. You can put your Switch in it, and, you know, you can do VR games. And I'm like, you know what? Well, okay, two things about the Virtual Boy Pro from IGN. One, it's just a plastic shell that you could put your Switch in. Someone could reasonably actually make that. Nintendo could have reasonably actually made that. Instead, they did it with cardboard. And two, there's a non-zero chance the Switch 2 has VR functionality. Because Nintendo's always been in favor of VR. Again, the Switch has Labo VR, which I've never tried. But I am kind of curious about, but you can't get those anymore. But yeah, I think there is like this where it's like, okay, you know, if you're going to do it, just actually do it. Of course, some of them you can't reasonably do. CD Projekt Red, right, the developers of Cyberpunk, made a joke about putting Cyberpunk on 97,000 floppy disks. Like, you reasonably cannot do that. But that, in my opinion's a funny joke. Putting the game on a bunch of floppy disks, like old school RPGs, you know, That's an actual, like, it's nothing. It's harmless. I thought that was actually a good joke. One of my most anticipated games of the year, which I cannot believe I'm saying this, even more than Hollow Knight Silk Song, which we'll talk about in a minute. But one of my most anticipated games of the year is Another Crab's Treasure. And for their April Fool's Day joke, they say they're adding Dark Souls mode to the game. It's a mode where it washes out all the color, and it gives the crabs, whose name I'm forgetting, it gives him depression and changes his walking animation. I legitimately think this is going to be an actual thing in the game when it releases. That they're going to add, this Dark Souls mode is going to be an option. Because, I mean, the game literally has a mode that gives Krill a gun. I could totally see them being like, nope, guess what, we actually added Dark Souls mode. Of course, there is a Dark Souls costume as well, but I'm, also convinced that that's real. And then, of course, they're like, and the trailer's like, oh, we added this costume from Redacted. And also we added on Orlando. Fuck it. Great. You can find the video on TikTok. It's a great reveal. But yeah, they added the fucking area from Dark Souls. And they also turned everything into a poison swamp. But legitimately, I think besides for the last two jokes about the poison swamp and on Orlando, which I'm definitely pronouncing wrong, I legitimately believe the rest of those jokes are in this game. Or in Another Crab's Treasure. I mean, it comes out in a few weeks. I 100% believe they did these things. So I think that's a good joke. Another company that always does pretty good jokes is Landfall Games. Landfall Games is most famous for Cluster Truck and Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. But right around the time that PUBG was big, this honestly might have been even before Fortnite. They did Totally Accurate Battlegrounds, which was a PUBG clone, before Fortnite became a PUBG clone, and then, Fortnite became bigger than PUBG, so then PUBG became a Fortnite clone. Right, they did Battle Royale before them, and that was their April Fool's Day joke one year. They've done a bunch of other stuff as April Fool's Day. They did Super Truck, where they combined Cluster Truck and Super Hot. They've done a few other things as well over the years. All pretty decent April Fool's Day jokes. And their joke this year was they released a game. It was free for the first 24 hours. So as long as you bought it within the first 24 hours, you got it for free. Which, of course, I did do. And then afterwards, you had to pay money for it. Which I think it's like $5? Something like that. But they added it. It's called Content Warning. And you play as a group of content creators. And you're living on the Sky Island. But if you go down to the surface below, there's a bunch of scary monsters. And you have to make videos of you and your friends going down and confronting the scary monsters to get views on SpookTube. So yeah, it's a whole joke. They basically combined Lethal Company with, oh god, what's the other game? It's Lethal Company mixed with something else. Fuck, I'm forgetting the other game's name. It's Lethal Company, right? You and four friends, proximity chat, exploring all these you're exploring this horror area with all these different horror monsters, trying to film your video, and then at the end you get to see your video get uploaded, you get views, you get money you can buy for stuff. Yeah, basically they just made Lethal Company. And honestly, it's pretty fun. I didn't play much of it, but I checked it out. It was April Fool's Day, sure, why not? And yeah, it was neat. I'm not going to say it's anything special. I do like Lethal Company. I think Lethal Company is pretty fun. And I think this is also, it's decent. Is it a little more janky than Lethal Company? I feel like Lethal Company has a more interesting loop. But again, as an April Fool's Day joke that they gave away for free, yeah, of course I'm going to cut them some slack here. I think this was a perfectly good time that you and a few friends could... again, if you had seen it on the day and you could have gotten it for free, yeah, there was totally no better way to spend time on April Fool's Day than just playing this for an hour or two with friends. There's a lot of interesting monsters and whatnot. There's a snail monster... And at first, I was like, oh, is it the fucking one hit? is it Gavin Free's one-hit kill Death Snail? That, because that would have been genuinely funny. It's not. It still does touch you though. But yeah, it's an interesting little game. Yeah, Landfall Games and Devolver Digital are the two developers who pull off game jokes consistently well. Right, Devolver has released a bunch of fake games over the years, as usually around, not on April Fool's Day, but usually around E3. Give me a second, everything's still broken. I forget everything's still broken, so I have to do things differently. Because of course it's still broken, fuck. Yeah, I totally just floundered everything. This sniper, man, this sniper fucking sucks. Because we can't get close to them, and they're just and like, we could just leave them alone, but then they move into our base, and who wants to deal with that? Yeah, so those were all fun ones. And then, of course, there were two things where it's like, is this a joke? Is this real? So the first one I saw was, of course, the one everyone freaked out about. Hollow Knight Silksong. Is the game ever coming out? Is it stuck in development hell? Definitely, by the way. It's definitely been in development hell. You cannot convince me about that otherwise. Well, on April Fool's Day, it got a store page on the Xbox Store. Does that mean it's coming out anytime soon? Who knows? But it got a store page, which is a good sign. I don't know. I think my prediction was June. Even though we haven't heard anything about this game, and right, we'd have to hear about it soon, my prediction is still June, and that has not changed. My prediction is still June, and I think it getting a store page now here in April does help give that some credence. At least I think my prediction was June. I kind of can't remember. Yeah, Hollow Knight got a store page, and everyone was like, oh, is this real? Is this not real? Nobody knows. Of course, it did turn out to be real, but there was this weird period where I was like, oh god, who knows? The one April Fool... Okay, the other one... okay, let's talk about these two in order. So the other one that I saw on April Fool's Day where I was like, is this real? Is this fake? Was, Catan. So they're releasing a new expansion to Catan called New Energies, which is about, like, solar power and wind power and whatnot. I'm a big fan of Catan. I know Catan is a much simpler board game compared to some others out there, and some people harbinge on its simplicity, especially when more complex stuff gives more value, blah, blah, blah. I like Catan. It helps that I'm good at it, but I do enjoy myself some Catan. So when I saw this new expansion, I was like, oh, a new Catan expansion? I saw it on April Fool's Day, and I was like, wait a second, is this real? Because, like, I know they're trying to get Lego Catan made, which that sounds amazing. They're trying to make a Lego Catan and a Lego Ticket to Ride. And I hope both of those things happen, because that sounds amazing. But I saw this Catan New Energies, and I was like, fuck, is this an April Fool's Day joke? I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it was not an April Fool's Day joke. I'm pretty sure it's just pure coincidence. It's just pure coincidence that, you know, if the news article about it came out on April Fool's Day. It might have been even announced before April Fool's Day, but that was the first time I saw it. So it was just one of those things where it's like, God, I don't know. But it comes out later this year, so I'm definitely interested. You know, it's been a while since the last Catan expansion. So I'm definitely interested. I'd love to play some more Catan. I mean, we just got Ticket to Ride Legacy, in November of last year, so that was a good new Ticket to Ride. And I guess there's a new edition of Ticket to Ride coming out as well. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not too invested in new Ticket to Ride, especially if it doesn't have bigger cards. I know Ticket to Ride uses the smaller cards, and I'm sure there's some reason for it, but I cannot play Ticket to Ride with the smaller cards anymore. You gotta use the 1912 expansion. Get the bigger cards. But that comes out... I don't know. From what I heard, that comes out soon. And then the final thing that actually... It was like, wait, is this a prank or not? Shane and Courtney over at Smosh got married. And it was one of those things where it got posted on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. And people were freaking out. Like, is this real? Is this not real? Am I too autistic to tell if this is real or not? People were freaking out. And they were like, okay, well, they kept posting pictures. And it was like, it might be a joke. It might not be a joke. Who knows? And then the following day on the 2nd, they posted another picture. And it's like, yep, it's real. And even today, I think Courtney put out like a statement or something being like, yes, we thank you for allowing us to do this privately, right, and giving us the privacy we need, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, good on them. I had no idea, honestly, as someone who only got back into Smosh recently with, when Anthony came into the company, I know nothing about their dynamics and their shipping or anything like that. But, so I had no idea they were even a thing, and it seems like a lot of people didn't know that either. But if they're happy, congratulations. Good on them. I hope they get the most out of it. So, yeah. What else? So, the final April Fool's Day joke is Minecraft. So, there's been a running joke that Minecraft, when it comes to putting out real updates, it's just like, oh, we can only add one feature every year. Whereas Minecraft, when it comes to April Fools, we can put out 1,000 features in one update. Right? They put so much work into their April Fool's Day updates. And I'll be honest, it always pays off. Minecraft April Fool's Day updates are just so much fun and so creative. And my big thing with them, though, is I wish the Minecraft April Fool's Days updates acted more as a testing ground. To be like, hey, we did it in an April Fool's Days update. Maybe we should actually add it to the game itself. Don't get me wrong. That has happened in the past. Things like Stained Glass. Stained Glass was originally in an April Fool's Day update. But it took years between Stained Glasses being in an April Fool's Day update and Stained Glass actually getting into the game. What was the recent example people pointed out? Of course, there are more recent examples that work the other way around. In last year's April Fool's Day update, the voting update, there were commands, or there was a potion that allowed you to grow bigger or smaller. That allowed you to increase the size of characters. And unless I'm misremembering things, I think they did add that to the actual game. Not as a potion, like it was in the update, but as a command you could do with command blocks. So I'm pretty sure in one of the most recent snapshots, if not, it's been a while now, you can go into the snapshot and do a command, and you can actually change a player size, you can change a mob size, so right, if you want giant creepers, yep, you can do that. Because, the most recent update was Trails and Tales. It was all about creativity and players telling their own stories. Even though the golden age of adventure maps ended 20-something years ago, metaphorically speaking, of course, right? Who the fuck plays adventure maps anymore? I would love if we were still getting great adventure maps, and we might be, but nobody's playing them. Right? Everybody likes SMPs nowadays, and the Life series. Which, by the way, the Life series was great. They did, for April Fool's Day, they did Real Life, which they were all playing Minecraft VR. And it was just, it was a one-shot, but it was pretty funny. I enjoyed that. So yeah, I don't know anybody who they're adding all these features to make better adventure maps. But nobody fucking plays adventure maps anymore. At least I don't know anybody who does. I'm sure there's some YouTuber out there who's still playing adventure maps all these years later, but I have no idea who the fuck they are, and nobody else does either. But, so this year's April Fool's Day update is the Poisonous Potato update. So rather famously, I don't know if it's rather famously, but the developers of Minecraft once said that not every feature added to the game should be something useful. Sometimes you should just add stuff to the game that purely exists or even gives negative consequences. And the example they always use to show that off is the Poisonous Potato. And I'll be honest, I agree. In general, I agree with that statement. That, right, not every feature added to a game has to be something useful or beneficial to the player. I mean, the Poisonous Potato, it's bad, but it also nerfs potato farms, which are, for a time were the most OP farm in the game. Until, well, they were nerfed by potatoes, and then golden carrots got buffed, and so on and so forth. But so the joke of this April Fool's Day update is it's all about poisonous potatoes. They added a poisonous potato dimension where you can go to it. There were either 3 to 5 new biomes. They added a bunch of new potato blocks. They added a new green wood type, which, I hope when they eventually get around to updating the end, I want terrain generation in the end to look like it does in this poisonous potato world. I don't like the end is just a bunch of flat islands. There was a glitch in one of the snapshots that made the islands have verticality, that it wasn't just this sprawling endless field of islands. No, they had like verticality, and it was an accident. But I wish they'd go back and add that, because I think the end with verticality just looks so much better. Seeing these giant chunks of islands that go down to the bedrock. They're still definitely islands, they just look better. So I would love to see that again. But yeah, I kind of hope if they ever go back and update the end, which I hope they would eventually, they add stuff like this. There's a poison... I don't remember what each of the biomes are. I know one of them is like a poison swampish area that has poison water. Add poison water to the game. There's a new green wood type with these really tall growing trees. Add that to the game. I like they gave the new green wood type this animated texture. I think it's it's not amazing. You could definitely use a touch up or two, but I don't think it's that bad. I'd have no problem. I definitely think at some point we will get a green wood type, because the game has given us every other type of wood. Or they try to give us a wood for each color, right? Like the crimson oaks are your magentas, and the other oak is your blues. We've got the mangrove wood is your red, right? They've given us wood for different colors. I would love for them to add a fucking Twilight Forest biome that had this new green wood in it. I think that'd be neat. But so there's a bunch of stuff like that. There's a new dungeon that you can go into, which I'll be honest, the actual design of the new dungeon reminds me of one of the Nether fortresses, but who cares about that? The big thing that matters is that it has a new boss in it. Minecraft desperately needs a new boss. Because while yes, the Warden is technically a boss, it's not a boss in traditional means. The Warden is not a boss, it's an obstacle. It's not something to be fought, it's something to be avoided. It's like spikes, or something like that. It's not something you're supposed to fight, it's something you're supposed to avoid. But I would love an actual... Because I think the last boss added to the game was the Elder Guardian. Which some people don't even consider a boss, because it doesn't have a boss health bar or anything like that. I know raids are also technically bosses. I don't know, raids don't feel like bosses, and I could see the argument, though, that things like the Breeze is in the Elder Guardian are mini-bosses, which I wouldn't entirely disagree with. The Evoker as well, I think, could be argued as a mini-boss. But no, an honest-to-goodness boss, and how it works is you do damage to the boss. And then it spawns a few enemies. You kill the enemies, you can do a little bit more damage to the boss. So it's basically like a wave boss, where it goes in waves. And, you know, every time it summons a few more enemies. So the first time you hit it, it summons like 2 chickens. Then the second time it summons 3 silverfish. Then the fourth time it summons 4 or the third time it summons 4 zombies. It was something like that until you eventually gets to like 10 giants. That's neat. You know, it's nothing amazing, but I think that's neat. And yeah, I would love to see a new boss in the game. I think that'd be pretty cool. Other items that people were freaking out about, they added a grappling hook. The default, Minecraft always talks about how, oh, we want to keep the game balanced. We don't want to break the game's balance and make things OP, like adding the Elytra, right? That there are some developers at Mojang who think the Elytra is the worst thing added to the game, and it shows. It shows based on how they develop features. But you've already got it. You're not going to undo it. So you know what you should do? Fucking add a grappling hook. It looked fun. It's fun to swing. Especially make it an... I know... My problem is, it's like, okay, make it an end grappling hook. But I don't want you to have to wait until the very end of the game to get it. Right? Because grappling... I think of grappling hooks in Terraria. Grappling hooks in Terraria were so much fun. And generally the grappling hook... Because I know we talked about how much they add to these April Fool's updates. At the end of the day, a lot of these features are kind of half-assed, they're kind of buggy. But I think if you just take the grappling hook here, polish it up a bunch, make it a lot less buggy, this would generally be a great feature to have in the game, especially when you're exploring the new theoretical end islands. Because I think the way it works, where you're swinging from island to island, is very fun. So yeah, I would love to see that. I would love Again, I hope these snapshots, these April Fool's Day jokes, are proof of concept for features they will eventually add to the game. And I hope it doesn't take 20 years to get them. That's the other thing. Right? I want these features ASAP, because they just look fun. I would love messing around with a grappling hook in the default game. Again, it doesn't feel that OP, but... Well, of course, knowing Mojang, they're going to make it... You can only get a grappling hook from an item with a 2% spawn chance, and then it breaks after 3 uses. Because given the chance, Mojang will optimize the fun out of their own game. Even though, it's funny I say that, but the mace works like that. Right, the new item, the mace, is stupid rare. It's like a 5% chance to get a heavy core. And I actually don't mind that. But I think I don't mind that because it's so powerful. Like, an enchanted mace can kill a full netherite player from, like, 5 blocks. Yeah, no, I get why they'd make that thing so rare. I don't have a problem with that. Again, it all goes down to armor trims and armor slate upgrade thing. Armor upgrades, upgrade slates, whatever the fuck they're called. Those are bullshit. I hate those. I know they tried to balance the game, but it literally takes all the fun out of it for me. I fucking hate armor trims and the armor slate upgrade thing so much. It makes me never want to use netherite stuff again. Which I know that's partially their intention, is they want players to really work for netherite, but they make them work so fucking hard that they literally have optimized the fun out of their game. Hot take, but I 100% agree. I think armor trims are one of the worst features added. It is the worst feature added in recent memory. I think it is worse than the combat update. Yeah, fucking I said it. Other cool things that they added to this update that I wish made it into the default game, they added floater blocks. So I remember years ago when someone made airships, a mod that added airships. And it was the jankiest thing in the world. So I was surprised at how smooth the floater blocks work. Like, they work so well. They have the lag. Like, I would expect with all those blocks moving, it would cause a bunch of lag. Not at all. Literally no problem with it whatsoever. And then the more of them you add, the faster it goes. And it gets like a bunch of blocks. It covers like a 32 by 32 area. It's huge. That's definitely something that's too OP. But I honestly really hope they get that added to the game. Because we already have piston slime flying machines. And yeah, sure, those work fine, and you can do some crazy things with piston slime flying machines. But just having a block that would make that more accessible to the average player would be so much better. I would genuinely love if this game... Because I'm sure I could watch a YouTube video on how to make a piston flying machine. But just having a block that would do it, that'd be so much cooler. And that's something I would put in the end. That's something you wait until the post-game to get. And then hopefully it just works. Because I think that would be cool. To have airship bases. Anything else? There was a feature that, where you could cover items in potato oil to make them, like, slipperier. So you know how, like, when you throw items on ice, it, like, makes them slip farther away? Well, you could do that for all... You could basically cover them in potato oil, and they would slip farther away. And while I don't think that's a feature we desperately need in the game, I think that'd be a cool command. If you could, like, when you create an item using commands, if one of the MBT datas you could modify was how slippery the item is. So that way, you know, if you wanted an item that, you know, had infinite momentum, you could do that. If you wanted to remove all friction from the world, so that it's like players are forever on ice physics, and, you know, they can't stop moving, I genuinely think that would be a very fun thing to do. Not as, like, a feature, not as, like, a potion. Like, I still think bigger and smaller potions should be added to the game. But, like, making items slipperier? Yeah, make that a command. I'm sure someone could do something fun with that. There was tons of other stuff as well added in the potato update. I can't remember all of them. I just really hope they're gonna add some of this in the future. Because a lot of this stuff is very fun, and I'd hate to see it go to waste as a one-off in an April Fool's Day update. Right? Give us some of this. It doesn't have to be a potato biome. They could add a portal to... They could retexture everything from potato to mystical forest and call it a day, and I guarantee you everyone would be happy. Like, if they called it mystical forest, or, you know, enchanted forest or something, and, you know, everything was the same, it was just all retextured, nobody would complain. Well, somebody would complain, but that's because Minecraft has a lot of cunty fans. I'm one of them. So, like, what else do you expect? But yeah, that was... Right, I'm sure there's other stuff I'm forgetting about. It's just... Again, Minecraft just knocks it out of the park with April Fool's Day updates. And they did not disappoint this year. No, they did not. What was the other stupid... There was one other thing. Again, we talked about there was a new potato mob. There was an enchanted golden potato. They added amber to the... I think it was amber. That was like a new, like, trading thing for villagers. That, of course, reused the ruby texture. Just made it yellow. You know, that's always a fun callback. Yeah, stuff like that. Whatever. So I guess that takes us to Wibby. So, what have I been doing? So, we're going to start off, we're going to talk about the Marble League. So, I keep putting off I just kept forgetting to talk about it. The Marble League is fantastic. Right now, they're doing, Marble Survival 100, where it's 100 races, and, you know, every week 2 teams get eliminated. And so far, my team, Team Galactic, it's been a very mixed event for them. Some weeks they're doing great. Other weeks we're barely scraping by. But so far we have made it. So far we have barely scraped by long enough. And this week, so as of today when this is being streamed, it is day 40. And as of today, we are mathematically safe. So even if we lose the next 2 races, there is no possible way for us to get into the bottom 2. So that's great. That is fantastic. It's been a good week for us. Like, the worst we've done this week is today, which I think we came in like 20th out of like 22 or 23. So today was awful. But other than that, so far we've been doing really great this week. We're currently ranked number 4. Go Team Galactic. The Green Ducks, on the other hand, right? So I know other people who watch the Marble Leagues, and the one is the other one. The Hazers are already out, right? So the Hazers are gone, so they don't matter anymore. But the Green Ducks this week have been cutting it close. They've had some pretty bad races. They were, I think, in the bottom of the very bottom 1 to 2 races ago. They did pretty. I think they came in like 13th today. But it's not entirely looking great. I mean, I think they'll be fine, but it has not been looking great for the Green Ducks this week. Other than that, I think the Green Ducks have been killing it. I think they came in 1st place last week. They did amazing last week, whereas I barely scraped by last week. But yeah, Marble League, man, it stresses me out. It's super stressful, but God, do I enjoy it so much. Go check out the Marble League. There's still, there's still 20-something teams left. Just don't root for... Is it the Purple Rockets who are currently at the bottom? It's either that or the... I want to call them Team Yeller, but that's not right. Mellow Yellow. I think Mellow Yellow's at the bottom as well. Because they ain't looking hot this week. And then fucking O-Rangers, man. O-Rangers have been all over the place. I consider O-Rangers my enemy. And the O-Rangers have been all over the place. Last week, they got stuck right before the finish line. And it was tragic. It was tragic. Good. They got what they deserved. And then, this week, though, I think they're doing pretty good. But, yeah, that was so fucking funny, seeing the Rangers get stuck at the finish line. Oh, shit, I was hoping to throw that down. So yeah, that's Marble League stuff. You know, the Survival Marble 100, go check it out. It's so good. If you're not already watching it, you know, it's fun. It's fun. It's a lot better than all this March Madness bullshit that I do not care about. Not one bit. So the other thing is Invincible. So I cannot remember when was the last time we talked about Invincible. I want to say we talked about the season premiere, but honestly, I think I just kept forgetting to add it to the list. So we have not talked about it in a while, but I just kind of want to go through it, talk about what's been going on in the show. Just as a reminder, because I haven't talked about it in a while, I'm not the biggest fan of Invincible or anything, but I'm a fan. I'm a big enough fan that I've read all the books. Let's put it like that. At the recommendation of Comic Drake, I picked them up, and I've read them all. I started reading them like years ago, before the show was even in production. And then I finished them when the first season aired. So, where we are currently, here in season 2. Wow. Oh wow, this tells me nothing. Wow, Okay, there we go, that's a little better. So, episode 5 just started, there's so many things going on, we're definitely not going to get to everything, but I'll try to get to as much as I can. Episode 5 was all about the Martians, right? That, hey, guess what, Mark's come back from space with his little brother Oliver, who's now being taken care of by Debbie, and it's this weird relationship, but hey, it's how it plays out in the comics. You know, just roll with it. They seem to get along. And meanwhile, Mark has to go back up into space because the Martians are invading. Like, that's the big scary thing. We finally get some good development with Rex. Like, hey, Rex comes in and talks to Eve about, like, what it means to be a hero. And sure, she fucked up, and a few people got hurt. But you know what? That bad thing happened, but you can't just let that one bad thing define you. You've done a lot of good as well. It's a genuinely great moment for Rex. And so that plays out, and then she agrees to go to space with them. While they're in space, Duplicate dies. Shrinking Ray, it seems like she dies, but she actually survives. I cannot for the life of me remember if she survives in the comics. I'll be honest, I don't remember anything else with Shrinking Ray, but I cannot for the life of me remember. Same thing with all the Donald stuff. So throughout the second half of this season, there's this big subplot with Donald, who is Cecil's number 2, where he's having like this existential crisis because he's an android. He's like 98% computer. It's probably just his brain. And he has this big, like, existential crisis. And then he eventually finds out that he's died, like, 20-something times. Which does not help his existential crisis at all. I don't remember any of that from the comics, if I'm being honest. I remember the ending where he talks, the guy off the ledge. The one who had been turned into one of the Reanimen. William's boyfriend. But I don't remember anything other than that. I don't know. It might have been there. I just don't remember it. But yeah, so right, the episode 5, they go to Mars. They end up almost dying. I think it's I don't remember in the comics Eve and Rudy being infected by the sequids. I don't remember that happening, but in this version they do. But hey, guess what? They're able to stop them. All's well that ends well. They get the astronaut back to Earth, and then you find out, surprise, surprise, a sequid had crawled inside the astronaut, and it crawls its way back out, and now they have successfully made it to Earth. Because nothing's ever over in this comic. I'll be honest, it's one of those things where it's just like, yep, you just gotta get used to, even when something dies, it always comes back. Just when you'd think they've defeated the villain, no matter how dead they are, they'll always come back. The Sequids, the Muellers, who, we see them get exploded in the premiere, and then one of them manages to survive, right? Everything always comes back. Omni-Man, we find out that, I want to say it's at the end of the first episode, it might be at the end of the second. We find out that, Alan survived. And even though people were confused because, like, he shuts off Alan's life support at the end of an episode, and it's like, that didn't happen in the comics. But even though it didn't, they still get the same results, right? Alan grows back, but this time he's a lot stronger. That's how it plays out in the comics. He just doesn't shut off the life support. So that was weird. We get cut back to Earth. We spent a lot of time this season with Amber and Mark, right? After Mark gets back from Earth, after he gets back from Mars, he's trying to spend some time out with his girlfriend. They go on a date, he's trying to do things right this time. He tries to enroll back in college when you find out Principal Winslow is now Dean Winslow. Why the fuck I remember his name of all things? I have no idea. I just do. But, he's trying to get back into college. He's trying to spend time with Amber. And, of course, they keep getting interrupted. But it eventually leads to the point in episode 7 where they're on a date and then Anissa shows up. Now, I saw some people, because Anissa is famous for one specific thing in the comics. And I saw some people freaking out saying, like, oh, they chickened out, they didn't do it. The thing with Anissa that everybody knows about her, everyone in quotes, I mean, that doesn't happen until, like, issue 114. That's not for a long time. Anissa's first appearance is probably around, like, issue 20 or 30. So, yeah, no. Oh, for people freaking out that, oh, they're not going to commit to that. They might still do. I 100% think they're still going to do it. It's just there's another thing that I don't know if they're gonna do. I honestly, the other thing with Eve, I think is less likely than what happens with Mark and Anissa. I'll put it like that. If you've read the comic, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm not gonna get any more specific than that. But yeah, so right there, date gets interrupted. Mark ends up fighting Anissa during their fight. He's right. He tries to like reason with her. They go on a mission to stop this giant sea monster that she easily kills, and then afterwards they fight. And Cecil's like, "Oh, just tell her you'll take over the planet to get her to leave, and then we'll figure it out." Because he can't beat her, because he's not going all out. And Mark refuses, but in the end she leaves anyways, warning that the next person to come isn't going to be as nice. Which I'm going to, not spoiler alert, but prediction for the next season, that's going to be the mid-season finale. So, right, assuming the seasons are still 8 episodes, episode 4 is going to be that. Is going to be the next person. That's my prediction right now. So I'm going to call that right now. But after, because they spend a big bit of episode 4 with, right, Mark goes to, is it Artie? He goes to Mark Hamill and asks him, like, for some dating advice, because, he doesn't have a dad anymore. And, Artie gives him some advice. Meanwhile, Amber goes to Eve to talk. And, they talk about their relationship and how much they love each other. But, they're trying to make it work and it's just not working. And then after Amber almost dies, they decide to call it quits. And I really like their breakup scene. Like, I know there's a large subsection of the internet that fucking hates Amber. And that, comics Amber is so much better. They're the fucking same. I know they're not the same as TV show Amber has more agency and, she's not white. And I guarantee you that's why there's a large section of people who hate her for just those two facts. But no, I genuinely think they handled the breakup well, that there is still this element of both of them that love each other, but they just can't. They just can't make it work. And, it's better to end where they did than just keep trying and keep making each other miserable. I knew their breakup was coming eventually. I do wonder if they're going to do the next, because there is one more thing with Amber in the comics after they break up. I do wonder if they're going to do that. I could see them not, because it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important to do. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they do it or not. I would assume so, but yeah. Let's see, what else? Anything else happened in between those episodes? Rex recovers, and he does a Spider-Man thwip thing to go, to beat a giant squid monster villain. Which, okay, so for a large part of the season, it had been building up. There had been all these Spider-Man references, right? There had been references to Spider... And this was, like, the big one. It's like, oh my god, are we going to get Spider-Man next episode? Because everyone knew where episode 8 was going. And in the comics, you do. In the comics, even if it's just the briefest blimp, you get Spider-Man and Doc Ock. And people are like, oh, are they going to do it? So we go into episode 8, and it's, right, Mark gets home to find, after being called by Ingstrom Levy, and he's threatening his family, and he keeps throwing Mark into all these alternate dimensions. And there's a lot of these are pulling straight from the comics. Oh, real quick side tangent, episode 7. Speaking of stuff straight pulled from the comics, there's a joke in the comics where Mark goes to Comic-Con and meets the creator of, I want to say it's Science Dog in the comics. And it's Magic Dog or Sorcerer Dog in the show. Because technically, Science Dog is still copyrighted. It's, it's copyright bullshit. But there's a joke in the comics talking about, like, how all these tips and all these, like, little tricks comic artists do to making comics easier. One for one, they translated that joke into the show but instead making it about how animators, use these tricks to make television animation easier. And they also poke fun of themselves at how long it takes to animate a show between seasons. Fucking, it's a great bit. It's a great joke from the comics that translated perfectly to television. That's my side tangent. Back onto the actual thing. So he goes to all these alternate dimensions, and some of these are taken straight from the comics. The Walking Dead universe, taken straight from the comics. The caveman one, the one with all the people in the woods, the Batman one, taken straight from the comics. And yes, the Spider-Man one where he runs into Doc Ock, and yeah, taken straight from the comics. And they changed it up a little bit, because the Spider-Man one, because they make reference to the fact that Spider-Man has been doing a lot of multiverse stuff recently. Of course, they could not get the actual license to Spider-Man. So instead they have Agent Spider, and instead of Doc Ock, it's Professor Ock. But it's the same, I saw some people being mad about it. Why? Listen, I guarantee you, 1,000%, without any hesitation, they tried to get actual Spider-Man. They got fucking Josh Keaton, the voice of Spider-Man. Of course they tried to get the actual rights to Spider-Man. I guarantee you they're still going to keep trying to get the rights to Spider-Man, and if they ever do, I bet they will go back and reanimate this scene. I can almost guarantee it. No questions asked. Because they clearly wanted it. It's kind of like the Sam Raimi suit in the Spider-Man game, where it was something people were asking for, and, it didn't come to fruition until, eventually it did. Because, the developers worked really hard behind the scenes to make their dream a reality. I bet the same thing is happening here. The showrunners are working really hard to try to get Spider-Man, and if they're going to keep fighting to get it, and I guarantee he'll show up if he does. I'm still personally convinced that if they do get the rights to Spider-Man, they're going to make an Invincible Spider-Man crossover movie. The rule is 6 seasons in a movie. I do think that at the current rate they're going in the comics, I think we can get 6 seasons. And if they get a movie, I think it should be the crossover with Spider-Man. That's my prediction still. That has not changed. Even if they don't, I still kind of want the movie to be Spider-Man. Just bring Josh Keaton back. Have fun with it. But we'll see. So I think the Spider-Man part's good. Another bit they added was when Mark jumps back through a portal, he's holding a Fortnite gun. Because, Invincible is in Fortnite. So throwing in that, kind of like how Avengers Endgame threw in a reference to Fortnite because they added Thanos to Fortnite. They did the same thing here. Invincible's in Fortnite. So, of course, they threw him in Fortnite. I feel like shows do this a lot nowadays. I feel like this is like the 3rd or 4th show to make this reference of... Oh, was it... Did God of War make this reference? I know God of War referenced PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Did they reference Fortnite as well? What was the other... There was another show that had a character in Fortnite. And they referenced the character being in Fortnite. In the show or the movie or whatever. I know for a fact that happened. And like a very similar setup where he's got like the Fortnite gun or something like that. Either way, it's a neat reference. That's cool. But, eventually it all culminates in this big fight between Angstrom Levi and Invincible, where he just kills him. He kills Angstrom Levi, and his only comment is, "I thought you were stronger." It's a good... So, this is not like a season finale thing in the comics. Mark killing Angstrom Levi, it's still his first murder, but it happens at, issue 22. It happens, that's the whole fight with his dad is issue 8. So they're not actually that far apart. But this issue, the show does a good job of paralleling Mark killing Angstrom Levi to Omni-Man almost killing Mark. That's a good parallel. I think it's well done, him being stuck in this desert world, and then being saved by the future Guardians of the Globe from an alternate timeline where he either never came back or he came back under weird circumstances. And then, of course, Eve telling him, like, hey, I love you. Make sure you tell your new timeline's version of you that you love her or that you don't. Just make sure to tell her. Yep, that plays out exactly like it does in the comics. And then throughout this entire thing, there had been a running thing about, right, Alan, he gets captured intentionally by the Viltrumites, who are getting Nolan ready for execution. And then so they both show up, and they're talking about their plan to, like, oh, well, you know, I'm here to bust you out. And Nolan's still like, no, I deserve execution because, you know, I care about inferior life forms. And I knew, I don't think I predicted this, but I always kind of figured in the back of my head, and I knew an episode was going to end with Nolan saying, I miss my wife. I may not have thought that's how the season was going to end, or I might have, I kind of don't remember, but I definitely knew that was like an ending episode stinger of him saying, I miss my wife. Because I do definitely remember, because that's like a very pivotal moment in the comics. I also, you know, I say all the Engstrom Levi stuff happens around issue 22. The whole Nolan saying he misses his wife is like issue 57. So that just kind of shows you how all over the place we are when it comes to the comics. Like, they're not doing things in the order they do them in the comics. Sometimes they're jumping really far ahead. Sometimes they're hanging back and doing stuff. But I think they're reaching the same goal, and part of it does give us better pacing. So at the end of the day, it's fine. So the last season we ended off, I want to say where that season ended at the time, it was around, like, I think the farthest comic they had addressed was like issue 27. This time, I have no idea where we are. Because based on them doing 27 issues, approximately, I was predicting 6 seasons, right? 25 comics per season, that gets us 6 seasons approximately, and then do a Spider-Man movie. And then this season, though, I'm a lot more all over the place, because on one hand, I'm like, no, they've definitely done something that's in, like, the 50s, right? Like that whole Nolan saying he misses his wife. But then, right, the thing with Engstrom Levi is, like, issue 22. The thing with the in episode, like, 2 or 3, where he goes down to Atlantis, that's, like, issue 9. So they're kind of all over the place, going back, doing stuff they missed, doing stuff ahead of time. So I have no idea how many more seasons this is going to take. I saw someone make the prediction that the final season of this show will probably be in 2032, which I'm fine with that. If it takes us 8 more years to do this entire show, sure. You know what? Good. As long as, you know, people are being paid well, and it comes to a satisfying conclusion, and, you know, people aren't being overworked. Yeah, no, I'm fine with it taking 8 years. I know the showrunners have said that the break between season 1 and 2 is going to be the shortest break in the show. That from here on out, they're going to try to get a season per year. But you know what? I hope it works out. I hope it works out. So yeah, predictions for the next season without giving any specifics. I think we're going to get another Viltrumite fight. I 100% think that's going to happen. The person who I'm thinking of is going to come along, and they're going to fight, and it's going to play out just like it does in the comics. And people are going to lose, kind of like with the Omni-Man thing, people are going to lose their fucking minds. I think Mark is going to get a new girlfriend. I think that's going to happen next season, because they're together for a big chunk of the comic. So I definitely think that's going to happen. I think, are we going to get... Again, I'm trying not to get too specifics. I don't remember when the war is. We might get the war at the end of the next season. I'll be honest, I was expecting... So in the final episode, I was expecting 2 cliffhangers. The one with Omni-Man and Alan. And then I was expecting a second one that just didn't happen. So maybe that what I'm thinking would happen at the end of season 3 isn't going to happen for a while now. But we know we're definitely getting the black suit next season. We're gonna get the black and blue suit, which kind of represents Mark distrusting the government, which we're kind of already seeing. Like, Mark gets really mad at Cecil for trying to get in someone to take care of Oliver. Like, that's all very intentional. So we know that's going to happen at some point. So I'm going to guess Season 3 is all going to be about him fully distrusting Cecil, which leads into Season 4, which is, my guess, going to be Dinosaurus. And I'm not going to say any farther than that. I'm just going to make the prediction Season 4 is going to be Dinosaur. I can't remember if it's Dinosaur or Dinosaurus. Either way, that's my prediction for Season 4. And yeah. Anything else for Season 3? Did we do the electricity guy in the show? I honestly... There's an electricity guy who kills his wife and child. I want to say we've done that guy already. If not, we're definitely going to do that guy at some point. But I want to say he showed up in one of the previous episodes. Oh, come on. I want to say he showed up in episodes 1 through 4. If not, definitely him. I really hope that next time they do the next set of seasons, they don't do this massive, 4-month break between seasons. Because I had forgotten so much of what they did in Season 1. And because they're doing things out of comic order, I can't remember what they have and they haven't done. Yeah, we're going to get let's see, next season we're going to get Oliver as a superhero. I think I know where the season finale is. I think it's going to be the war, but it might not be. I do think Nolan is going to come back and see Debbie. But I do not know if it's going to play out how it does in the comics. Because I know how it plays out in the comics. But based on what the show has done with Debbie, because they've actually given Debbie a lot more screen time in the show, and in the comics, she becomes an alcoholic, right? In order to deal with losing Nolan, she becomes an alcoholic, and she blames Mark for pushing him away, for pushing the dad away, and they just didn't do that in the show. I mean, she drank a few times, but nothing like what happened in the comics. So I don't know how the comics are going to play out. Or how the show's going to play out with Debbie and Nolan, but I don't think it's going to play out like how it does in the comics, but it might. You never know. You honestly never know. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about it. I'm sure there's something I am inevitably forgetting. The last thing I'll say is, so an important character who technically is older than Invincible, but is important to the story of Invincible, is Tech Jacket. He's his own comic book character, right? He's a guy who gets his tech jacket that gives him powers. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but he eventually becomes important. And I could see them giving Tech Jacket either his own, mini-series, or, you know how, we got the Adam Eve special that explained her backstory? That is... I don't know if that happened in the comics. I honestly don't remember that in the comics. It might have been its own standalone thing that I never read. But I could see them giving Tech Jack... Maybe not between seasons 2 and 3. Maybe between seasons 3 and 4, or maybe even between 4 and 5. But I could see them giving Tech Jacket his own special. And then, introducing him as, a major character at some point. Because he does play a pretty decent, important role in Invincible, in things that are coming. And I'm just going to put that prediction out there now. We're going to get a Tech Jacket miniseries, or a Tech Jacket one-off. Probably closer to when he's actually important. But I could see them introducing him sooner or later, and establishing him as he's a hero in this universe. Even though I don't think him and Invincible cross over until he actually becomes important, I could see the show introducing him sooner and making him more important earlier. So yeah, that's the last thing I gotta say about Invincible. So the last thing we gotta talk about is Fourth Wing. So I'll be honest, I have not played any video games this week. Well, I did not play Princess Peach Showtime. I did not play any video games for the point of playing video games. Instead, I did play Link's Awakening, but I used it as something to do while I was listening to an audiobook. Because I've been listening to the audiobook of Fourth Wing. And it's to the point where it was like any free time I had, I was putting towards the book to try and finish it. And I finished it like 4 hours ago. Yeah, it's probably been more time. I think it was like 6 hours ago now, because we've been going for like an hour now. So yeah, it's probably closer to 6 hours ago. But I did finish it, and while I was playing it, or while I was listening to it, I was like, okay, I want to do something. So I played through Link's Awakening again. Link's Awakening might be my favorite Zelda game, by the way. It's definitely there's definitely some recency bias in there. But just playing through Link's Awakening just makes me happy. The ending of that game also makes me cry. Not because it's particularly sad, even though it is kind of sad, but more because I just think it's beautiful. I think the ending of Link's Awakening is beautiful in a way that I can't really put... You know that whole argument about are video games art? Link's Awakening is art. And there's just something beautiful about the ending that I can't really put to words, but it's like, yeah, this game is art. Because all games are art. I do not care what a dead film critic said. Video games are art. He died wrong. I'm just gonna say it. I know he's America's critic. He was wrong. And luckily, since he's died, the whole "are video games art" conversation has kind of died out. It's kind of like how the biggest anti-seatbelt guy died in a car accident where he was the only one who died because he was the only one who wasn't wearing his seatbelt. And as a result, the whole anti-seatbelt movement kind of died. Or kind of like how the anti-welfare movement ended because Ayn Rand, you know, the Randism, objectivism person, died on welfare. Like, that kind of kills objectivism when you really think about it. Yeah, that happened, by the way. Ayn Rand died on welfare. Remember that. Right. Next time you're talking to a libertarian, remember to tell them that. But... So, where was I going with that again? Link's Awakening is amazing. It's beautiful. I've talked about it a dozen times before, because I think it is the Zelda game I have played the most times. I think I've played the original version once, the Game Boy Color version DX. I've played that twice, and I think I've played the Switch port like 4 times. Which I know that's 4, 5, that's 7 times. That's not huge, but that's like the most times I've ever played any Zelda game. Because I think the next closest is Ocarina, which I've played 4 times. Is it Ocarina? No, it's Link Between Worlds. I've probably played Link Between Worlds 4 times. I think I've played Ocarina of Time 3 times. I've played Majora's Mask 2 or 3 times. I've only played Skyward Sword twice. I've only played Breath of the Wild twice. Most of the games I've only ever played once. I'm trying to think, are there any others I've played multiple times? I played Link to the Past twice. I played Wind Waker, I think, 3 times. I played Twilight Princess twice. Let's say I've beaten Twilight Princess twice. I'm pretty sure I started it once and then just never beat it. Yeah. And like I said, I kind of want to play Wind Waker again. That's why. I want to play Wind Waker again because now I've been playing Link's Awakening and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to play Wind Waker. I also, one of the things I love about Link's Awakening is that I can beat it in like 6 hours. I know that's like way off from like the speed run, but as someone who's not speed running the game, beating the game in 6 hours compared to something like, I like Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword takes like 35 hours to beat. That's one of the big things about Skyward Sword, is it takes like 30 hours. I can beat Link's Awakening, like, God, like 5 times in that amount. Yeah, Link's Awakening is great. The one thing I will say about this playthrough is I played it on hero mode or hard mode, right? The Link's Awakening remake added a hard mode, where I think the only big enemies might have more health, but the one big difference I know of is that they don't drop hearts. Enemies don't drop hearts or fairies. Like, grass doesn't drop hearts or fairies. There's no way to really recover health other than buying it or dying. So I died, I think, 41 times. This is my first time ever playing the hero mode. I think I died about 41 times. I picked up the red mail. Or I picked up the blue mail instead of the red mail. Because most of the time I pick up the red mail, because I love that double damage, and then you get the upgraded sword, so now you're doing quadruple damage. At least I'm pretty sure you do quadruple damage. I don't know, I've never actually checked. But yeah, I usually pick up the red mail, or maybe I usually pick up the red mail until I get the upgraded sword, and then I get the blue mail, usually around like the final dungeon. This time, I was like... yeah, and I don't think it's that enemies do double damage. It's just that you take double damage, maybe. Because, like, usually, like, you fall down a pit, you lose half a heart. This game, you fall down a pit, you lose a full heart. That sucks. So I think I got the blue armor, and that still doesn't help. Pits still take a full heart. But enemies now only do half a heart, which was nice. So I did that. I did get 40 secret seashells, just to make sure I could get the upgraded sword. Because I needed that extra damage. Because I was not doing much. I tried a few speedrunning tricks, nothing major. Ooh. But yeah, so I was playing, and I was having a good time. But, so while I was doing that, I was listening to Fourth Wing. So where we left off... I want to say we had finished chapter 14. Violet had just got her dragons, right? So I'm going to say full spoilers ahead. We're going to talk about everything. So Violet had just gotten her 2 dragons, and that was like the big reveal, right? That she's there. I referenced a TikTok last week that honestly, having finished the book now, is beat for beat accurate. Like, if you told me even though I'm pretty sure that, like, that video is every young adult novel ever, this one totally fits into that. Even though I still think Divergent's the perfect example of the young adult novel. The bad young adult novel. God, do I fucking hate Divergent. But, But yeah, what was I saying? Right, that video is more, right, her being the double major. That video ends the same way the book ends, and I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, no way, they're actually doing that. Holy shit. So yeah, full spoilers for Fourth Wing. But, so, things that happen. So, the dragon, the little Andorna, turns out she has power over time, and that the main character, Violet, is able to use the power to freeze time, which I was like, oh, that's fun, that's cool. And she uses that to stop herself from being murdered, because they try to murder her, and the person who tries to murder her, Amber, who's like one of Dean's friends, gets executed by all the dragons. Like, they kill her, and then at her death, her dragon dies as well, in like this big sequence. So that was like, oh shit. Because again, so one of the things with this world is I was like, the entire time I was reading this book, okay, maybe not the entire time, but definitely like within the first like 5 chapters, I was like, okay, clearly the country they're working for, Navarre, is evil. I was like, very clearly, Navarre is evil. Like, obviously. And I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And, like, one of the big factors telling you, like, hey, the country's evil, they don't give a shit about human life. Like, not one bit. And I know that, oh, well, them not caring about people isn't that big of a deal. And, oh, it makes sense because only the dragons only want strong, special people. Like, that's all a bunch of bullshit. You know, like, I think about the real military, and one of the most important factors in the real military is how how everyone's, you know, a brother or a sister. You know, the show's not called a Band of Brothers for no reason, right? Being a brother, it's when you're in the military, your family. And this book just takes the exact opposite approach. And that's just how the entire country feels about everything. It's like, okay, maybe they're not exactly a Nazi allegory, or, you know, maybe they're not an America and Vietnam allegory, but they're still definitely an uncaring, right, evil nation. Like, that's very obvious. And, you know, the main character is falling to all... They talk about how, like, oh, we know nothing about the Griffin Riders. And, like, all we know is that they're evil savages. And I'm like, bitch, you're clearly... I know your mother's, like, the head of the military. But you're very clearly falling for propaganda. There's tons of information they're not telling you intentionally. It's, like, very clear the government's evil. And they don't fucking say anything until, like, chapter, like, 35. When they finally meet some Griffin Riders, and you find out that the Zayden guy was working for the Griffin Riders the whole time. Because turns out there was a point where she's talking about fairy tales she read with her dad. And I was like, bookmark this. I know this is important. She's talking about the Vernon and the Wyverns and the Three Kings. And I'm like, this is all stuff that's going to come up later in the book. Like, obviously. And yeah, sure enough, it does. But yeah, that was so... All those fairy tales being real, like, that was... I mean, I'm not going to say it was terrible foreshadowing or anything. But, like, that was clearly all being set up. Between the two boys, I know I said last week that I did not like Dean. He was, you know, he's your stickler for the rules. He's an asshole. He clearly, right, he's babying the Violet. I liked Zayden. Even when Zayden was an asshole, I liked him more. And yeah, of course that paid off. Because so last week I talked about, Coomers, right? Gooners, whatever the word we're using, right? And how Book Talk is just a bunch of gooners, and Book Nooks are goon caves, right? Just, they're basically the masculine and feminine versions of the same idea. And I was actually really surprised at how restrained this book was on that. For, you know, how much I hear about these Book Talks books with, instead of saying goon material, they use the word spice, but it's the same fucking thing, right? Spice and porn are inseparable. They're the same fucking thing. I was actually really surprised at how restrained this book was. I was like, oh, the dragons have sex before they do. I was kind of like, because she talks about wanting Zayden, but Zayden's always like, no, right? Like, at that moment, Zayden's like, no, because you're not in the right state of mind. Like, Zayden really values consent. Good on you, Zayden. At least right now. Again, at the end of the first book. I have no idea what happens in the second one. But I was like, good on you, Zayden. And I was really surprised at how restrained the book was. For all these horror stories I hear about Book Talk books being fucking gooning material, I was expecting worse. And then I got to chapter 30. And chapter 30 was a sex scene. For all of chapter 30. Okay, maybe, like, I think chapter 30 was like 30 minutes long. And like 25 of those minutes were a sex scene. And then I was like, okay, boom, there's our big sex scene. A kid should never read this book. Right? Like, a kid should never read this book. The rest of it, honestly, even with all the... When I say kid, I'm going to say, like, teenager. Like, let's say, like, a freshman in high school. Like, a freshman in high school should never read this book. Like, all the swearing and whatnot, even, like, the mentions of sex before that, I was like, you know what? It's no big deal, right? I was like, whatever. I could see, like a 12, 13-year-old, like, freshman in high school read this. And then at a certain point, it was, you get to the sex scene and it's like, no. Oh, God, no. A kid should never read this. And then 31 was normal. And then 31 is another sex scene that also goes on for at least half the chapter. And I was like, oh shit. And then that's it, right? They like mention wanting to have sex a few more times. Like they're constantly like throwing themselves at each other, but nothing actually happens after 31. Like nothing major happens after 31. Or 32, I mean. So that kind of surprised me. Yeah, no, I still, in the grand scheme of things, it was relatively restrained. It was really just those 2 chapters. And, like, there's totally a way you can do a PG-13 version of this book, and I don't think you would actually lose much. Like, I could, you know, is it Anne Frank's diary? Which, okay, this is a bad comparison. But you know how, like, in the original version of Anne Frank's diary, there's a lot of talk about, you know, because she's a teenager or child. She's somewhere in that age. I kind of can't remember. But, you know, she's in that age. She's discovering about her body and herself. And there's a lot of talk about her, like, masturbating in her diary. That, you know, for kids to read it in school, they just cut it all out. They just cut all of that stuff out. And guess what? It's still a good, impactful book. And I've seen people argue that actually taking that stuff out actually makes the book better. I'm not going to agree or disagree with there. Like, I think it does a good job at representing her age in that situation. But this book, yeah, I could totally see, with just like a few edits, definitely shortening chapters 30 and 32, you could probably make a pretty solid PG-13 version of this book that says fuck a few times and whatnot. Yeah. But there is no age rating system for books, so who cares? Because I guarantee you some 12-year-old is going to stumble across it and not be none the wiser. Because, hey, it's a book with dragons. I'm honestly surprised there isn't an age rating system for books. You know, movies, television, video games, they all have age rating systems, but books don't. Not that, do we really need one? No. Do we need one for movies and television? And games? Not really either, but, you know, some parents just don't want to parent their kids, so, like, fuck it. And, you know, if it's in a book, the parents will never check. I mean, that's all those books that get banned in, like, Florida and whatnot. You know, those people have never... The people who are banning books have never actually read those books. Right? All those... They're just going on a website that says, hey, this book has gay people in it. We should ban it. And they will literally never check. They will never... That's probably why they get away with it, because nobody will ever read those books. At least they won't, because they're too stupid. Because a lot of them don't know how to read. I want to say someone found out that one of the biggest book banning advocates in the country, because it's only like 200 people doing this. All book bans in the United States are organized by like 200 people. Same thing with like misinformation on Facebook. It's just like 200 people doing it. And like they don't know how to read, but they're just banning them because Facebook said so. Because they have gay people in them. Did this book have gay people in them? I actually don't know. I want to say there was like, was it Rhiannon, the friend? There was like there was something where I was like, wait, isn't that a... Because Rhiannon gets way more action than the protagonist does. And I want to say they like make a reference or something like that to it. Maybe? God, I kind of can't remember. So yeah, there's that. But you know, complications happen. There's a ton of stuff I'm going to skip over. Let's talk about the ending, because that's what I want to talk about. So, okay, so the ending, I saw coming, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I bet this is how it's going to play out. But the only reason I had to guess that, like, there wasn't, like, an insane amount of evidence. If there was, I definitely missed some of it. But, okay, so there's a book called The Marrow Thieves. It's a really interesting book, right? I'm going to describe it here, the plot, here in a second. At least, like, the setup. And you're probably going to be like, oh, that does sound interesting. So, it's a future world in which people lose the ability to dream. But they find out that if they extract bone marrow from Native American people it gives them the ability, right? They can, like, I don't think they like, can inject the bone marrow into themselves, and it gives them the ability to dream again. Real interesting premise. And it's a book I liked it. I wasn't blown away by it or anything, but I enjoyed it. And the book ends. So there's a few characters, right? It's a group of people. It's a group of kids and adults. There's an old lady, and they're running away from the government who's trying to harvest their bone marrow. And one of the guys, I can't remember any of the characters' names, but one of the guys is gay. And his husband or boyfriend, I want to say it was husband though, his tragic backstory is that his husband was captured by the government and taken away. And now he's got like a necklace or something to remember his husband by, and that's it. But then the first book in the Marrow Thieves ends with the plot twist reveal that his husband is actually alive. How is he alive? I don't know. I never found out because I never read the second book. But it's still like a big twist, and I remember it being like, oh shit. So, of course, so with that in mind, I was not at all surprised when this book did the exact same fucking thing. I was not at all surprised by that. On one hand, I'm kind of glad, because, oh, she gets to see him again. Oh, isn't that so exciting? But on the other hand, I'm like, oh my god. And especially the only line he says is, oh, welcome, Violet. Welcome to the rebellion. It's like, welcome to your master's degree in rebellion. Like, fuck, man. She really is the double major. Like, ah, shit. That line had me laughing so hard. But yeah, that's where the first book ended. Like, holy shit. Because there was an earlier point where she mentions that her brother died to keep up the lie that the kingdom, because you find out the whole these Vernon, right? There's people who like lost their souls to get like magic power without having to make deals with dragons, and they like consume magic. Because there's like an endless desert called the Barrens, and the Barrens are only the Barrens because they ate all the magic. But the wards that the kingdom has protects them from the vermin. But the other kingdom right next door doesn't have any wards, so they're not protected at all. So even though the kingdom's at war, right, the Griffins and the Dragons are at war, they're only at war because the Dragon Kingdom denies the vermins, doesn't let anyone know they exist, and is just letting them ravage the Griffin Kingdom, while the Griffins are just desperately trying to stay alive. Like, yeah, of course the main character's, her mom is evil, right? Because one of the weapons that kills the Vernon, whatever they're called, is on the mother's desk. And it's like, yeah, of course they're evil. Like, your mother is very obviously evil. And I hope I know Dean, whatever his name is, he's obviously going to become a villain in future books. Like, he already betrayed Violet. But, like, it's clearly only going to get worse from there, and, like, he's going to go full-on villain. I would not be surprised if he turns into a nice guy who thinks he deserves women, right, just because he was friendly to them. That would not surprise me at all, sadly. Because I could see where I could see where that's going. I hope the three siblings get united and end up on the same side. That Mirren, the older sister, realizes, like, oh, our mother lied about everything. Part of me would think it would be more interesting if she knew, and, right, her and Violence fight. But then it's like, oh no, our brother is alive, and that's what gets her to turn. Not anything about like the Vernon or anything like that. I think that would be interesting. Other shit. There's a dozen other things I'm not mentioning, obviously, because it's a long book. It's like 20 hours. The last chapter changes to Zayden's perspective, which I didn't know how to feel about that. Because I was just talking about a book a few weeks ago where I was like, oh yeah, this book's pretty enjoyable if you cut out all the male perspective. Right? I don't like the audiobook I listened to had like 2 bonus chapters that are like, hey, this is chapter 9 of the book, but told from his perspective. And I'll be honest, I just did not want to listen to that. Zero interest in that. That does nothing for me. So yeah, I'm not listening to those. I don't give a fuck. But I hope the next book doesn't, like, alternate between the two. Please don't alternate between the two. I'd be fine if it alternated between Violence and her sister. I'd be fine with that. But I don't need Zayden's perspective. Do you want to do that? You write another... You do what fucking Hunger Games did, or what Cinder did, or fucking Twilight, where you tell it from the other... You write a whole other book telling it from the other character's perspective. Because then I can just completely ignore it, like I did all those previous ones. Okay, I did actually read Fairest. Didn't love it, but I read it. Yeah, yeah, so Fourth Wing, is it great world building or trashy romance? I think it's somewhere in the middle, honestly. Like, I'm not gonna say it's trashy romance. I don't want to go that far. Because honestly, the love triangle isn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I was like, okay, it's gonna be Violence, Zayden, and Dean. And they're all gonna fucking love triangle. But no, like, by like chapter... even by like chapter like 15 or 16, Dean's out of the picture. Like, they kiss once and that's it. It really is just Violence and Zayden. So it's not really love triangle exactly. I mean, they do spend a lot of time together. You know, they are cosmically bonded through their dragons. So it's like a whole thing. But no, I do enjoy... You know, I'll be honest, the map completely confused me. Because, you know, they're in... I eventually figured out they're in Navarra. And they're in... Because the copy of the book has, like, a map on the front cover. And I was, like, trying to figure out, like, where they are, what's the enemy kingdoms, where are they... They're in, like... not Vermont. I eventually started to figure out things, but I'll be honest, it took me a while to get the map. That was kind of one of those things I struggled with for a little bit. Because they do definitely throw a lot of terms at you. You can tell I've never read Dune. I've never finished Dune. And it's not terms that bother me. It's when you throw out 30 terms and then just expect us to instantly get them. Like, at least Dune has a fucking glossary that I don't use. Honestly, the terms aren't even that bad. I say that, but no, like, they're not even that bad. It's just, I'm bad with names. I mean, as I just pointed out a little bit ago, I'm bad with names. And I'm honestly surprised I remember as many of them as I do. Anything else? So I have not watched the Crimson... I mentioned last week that part of the reason I had even I picked up this book a while ago, but part of the reason I started reading it, like, in the past, like, 2 weeks was because Crimson Rogue finally put out their video. Maybe past 3 weeks. That was part of the reason I had started it. Because I only just finished the book, like, 5 hours ago. I have not watched that video, but I will. I love this artwork. This is such a cute artwork. I gotta go find that somewheres. Yeah, I have not watched it. I will. I'll get around to it eventually. I just haven't yet. There's... Oh, you went over there. But yeah, and then yeah, I do have Iron Flame. I'll start reading it eventually. I know it'll probably be the next thing I get to. I don't know, it's like 10 hours longer. Like, the original audiobook's like 21 hours. The next one's like 28 or something like that. So, and I want to say it's actually only 20 if you don't include the other chapters. And I would not be surprised if this one has bonus chapters as well. So it might be a little shorter than that. But those extra like 7 or 8 hours add a lot. Like, luckily, it's not like the difference between like Winter and Cinder, where like Winter was like 1,000 pages, whereas like Cinder's like 300 something. And this book's a lot smaller text than Winter, as or like the the font size is a lot smaller than like those other books. I'm using the comparison of Cinder a lot tonight because the person who reads the audiobook is the same person who does the audiobook for Cinder. Which, by the way, love the person who they got to do it. I like the Cinder audiobook. I like how they do this one. I think they're great. It's Rebecca Soler, I think? That sounds right on the top of my head. So I think that's our last match for today. Yeah, we won a few, we lost a few, you know how it goes. We went for a lot longer than I was expecting. I mean, we spent an hour on Wibby. I did already buy the snack cake for today. So we do already have that. I think I already checked the stores as well, so there's no point. So yeah, I guess that takes us to the outro. So what's next? What comes next? I don't know. Oh, they did announce the next Splatfest. It's, lesbians versus bunnies versus gays. So that'll be fun. I don't know which team I'm gonna pick. Probably bunnies. See? Yeah, bunny. See? Bear. And then... I don't know, whatever the... I think the third team is Team Chick. But you get it. Here it is. Yeah, love that. It's a cute little artwork. So what comes next? Again, now that we're done... Oh, I didn't even mention Pokemon. Oh, fuck. So in Pokemon, right, we were working on the getting all 1,025 Pokemon. Where we left off, we were missing, like, 10-ish? We were missing, like, 10 to 12-ish. I got the missing ones. So, for Gorbis and Huntail, I found out that in Sun and Moon, you can go fishing in a particular spot and fish up a clam pearl. If you then throw an adrenaline orb at a clam pearl, it will summon... It'll do like the SOS thing, where it'll summon an ally. And there is a 3% chance it will summon a Gorbis during the day, and a 3% chance it will summon a Huntail at night. So that's exactly what I did. I taught my Absol that we caught in the last stream False Swipe. I then used False Swipe on... I used False Swipe on a Clam Pearl, threw an Adrenaline Orb at it, and then just had an SOS battle. It took me about an hour to get Gorbis, because I had to... The Clam Pearl has like a 5% chance of spawning. And then it has a 3% of getting a Gorbis. But I got the 5%, you know, in like 10, 15 minutes. And then getting the SOS Gorbis took like another like 45. The Huntail, on the other hand, took me like 20 to 30 minutes to find the Clam Pearl. And then the Gorbis appeared on the first SOS. So that's how I got that. To get Delcatty, I went into Pokemon Omega Ruby. Went and caught a Skitty. Went and found a... Because I tried to get... Because I was able to transfer Skitty into Brilliant Diamond. And then I went underground to try to find a Moonstone. And I just could not find the Moonstone. I found Leaf Stones, Fire Stones. I found a bunch of fossils. But I could not find a Moonstone. So instead I just went into... Omega Ruby, was able to get the Delcatty, able to evolve it with the Moonstone. Easy enough. So that's how I did that one. The Darmanitan, as it turns out, in Pokemon Sword, you can catch the Galarian Darmanitan. And then there's an NPC that appears on the Isle of Armor, and you can trade Galarian Darmanitan for the Unnovan Darmanitan. And then if you breed the Unnovan Darmanitan while holding an Everstone, it'll give birth to more, it'll lay eggs that contain more Unnovan Darmanitan. And then I was able, Doramaka, you can trade the Doramaka for Doramaka, whichever, it's one of them. And then that's how I was able to get Doramaka. So that's how I did that one. And then I think that was it. I think that was all we were missing. If there might have been like one other thing, I'll be honest, I can't entirely remember. But that all seems right in my head as like the only things we were missing. And yeah. So technically we're still missing two things. We're missing Iron Crown and Iron Boulder. So I do not have those two, right? You get those for beating the Scarlet and Violet DLC. So I don't have those two. But other than that, we have everything else. Okay, I also don't have Hisui and Typhlosion. But I'm like in no rush to go get that. Like it's not that big of a deal for that one. Because we have normal Tyranitar. Typhlosion, I mean. But yeah, other than that, I got everything else. So the Dex currently reads 1,023 out of 1,025. So yeah, that's pretty nice. And yeah. That's the Pokedex. And I think that's it. Again, I don't have any plans for any streams anytime soon. We'll, figure things out eventually. I do want to play Wind Waker. I'm definitely not going to do that on stream. Like I said, I might listen to Iron Flame while doing that. We'll see. And yeah, I think that's it. We've been going long enough. I'm just going to say that's it. Because, I had anime to talk about. Like, I watched the anime Shy. I've been working on that for the past, 2 weeks. And, I finished it. And, I have some thoughts on it. I'll be honest, I didn't love it. But we can save that for another time. So yeah, with that, that's where we're going to end off. Hopefully I'll be able to fix the stream by next week. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.